Hello, I'm Joanne Kong. I'm a pianist, harpsichordist, chamber musician, and also a vegan advocate.
Hi, I'm Christoph and I'm a cellist, and I have my beautiful cello here. And I'm also vegan, and I love advocating for a more vegan world.
It was pretty early on that I decided in high school that I wanted to be a professional musician, and not only do I enjoy playing as a solo musician, I found that the most enjoyable thing to do is collaborating with other musicians, because I think music gives you the chance to really share in the beauty of musical sounds, and I feel so fortunate that I'm collaborating with this amazing cellist, Christoph, and we're so glad to be here today. And we have found, as we'll be speaking about shortly, that we have found ways to use our music to speak for important causes that we believe in. One of the most important roles I've taken on, in addition to being a performer, is a teacher and inspiring young people, not necessarily to go into music, but realizing that developing their creativity, their musical skills, is a part of developing the whole person. So teaching became a very important part of what I do. And I've done some unique projects over the years. One was back in, I think it was about 10 years ago, I premiered a concerto written by Pulitzer Prize winning composer Michael Colgrass. And this particular concerto actually featured me playing on both the piano and the harpsichord in the same musical piece. So that's probably the most unique musical project that I've pursued.
So you both have some pretty impressive backgrounds. Share a little bit about that, like your background in music and how you've gotten to this point.
I wanted to play the cello from the moment I actually can remember thinking. So I think I was about 6 years old when I eventually got my first little cello and started playing. And then, I think when I was like a teenager, it became clear that I want to do that professionally. And one of the reasons I feel compelled to being a musician and being a professional musician now is I truly believe that music is a foundational pillar in society, in humanity. We have to eat, we have to sleep, we have to drink, and I think music is also part of that foundational human basis which makes our society and makes our world. And I think it's so important for me to really contribute to that music in the world, to the education of music, to the listening of music, to the performance of music. So that is something I really feel compelled to, and I feel very fortunate to do also with Joanne Kong, to have this opportunity to play together and play concerts together for meaningful causes also. I always feel like whenever I did like community engagement projects, and I'm thinking of one project particularly in Los Angeles, which was that street symphony project with in underserved communities, and we were able to play music there. That is really when I feel like music fulfills that purpose of actually transformation, of transforming lives, of transforming the world.
Is there any kind of goal that you have performing for people? Like, is there anything you're trying to accomplish? Maybe some emotions you're trying to help people reach or turn them on to this kind of music, or what's your goals with it?
I think one of the most important goals for us in our collaboration is to truly reach the hearts of the people listening to our music. Believing that eventually through that transformation of ourselves, of who we are, we actually can also be the change for the world. So if we can allow people to have moments of reflection and contemplation, to actually reconnect with their hearts and their inner wisdom through our music, they can align to who they are and can actually be the change in the world. This is one of the goals we really strive for with our project.
And it's really also about, like you were talking about, finding a special acoustical space where, we live in such a materialistic world. We're distracted by so many things that happen in our everyday life. And going to a concert, listening to music, even if you're at home just listening to music, is a chance to re-energize that part of us, which I think is really central to our identity. It's this sense of innate compassion that we are emotional feeling beings, right? And I believe that so much of that has been overlooked. And it's a way of really returning to the source and kind of the sense of calm inner peace that we should all be maintaining. And I know you do that really well with your meditation practice and mindfulness practice and all of that. You know, it all is about well-being, right? And being centered. And as musicians, I think we help people to do that as performers.
One of the things, the way I think about it is like we eat wonderful plant food to nourish our body. And music is a way to actually nourish our soul and our spirit. And I think this maybe like summarizes like the idea of the importance of music in the world and what we want to accomplish with this project.
Is there anything you do to connect people to veganism through your music, and how would you specifically do that?
That's a really good question. So I have been a professional musician for a very long time, and I've only been a vegan advocate for the past, I'd say, 6 or 7 years. And people oftentimes will ask me, well, what does music have to do with vegan advocacy and being vegan? And I realized early on that they share so many things in common, because as a musician, you're reaching to people, creating a certain sensitive response, using a part of their heart and brains that maybe normally they don't. And with veganism, it's the same thing. You know, we hope to awaken the empathy and those core values and beliefs that will lead to more compassionate actions. You know, to allow, maybe on a subconscious level, to motivate people, right? To start thinking about, well, what can I do in my life and in the lives of my friends and family to create space for a more compassionate style of living. So we do it as musicians and as vegan models, I guess you could call us. So the two for me are really tied together.
Yeah, so how would an audience even hear that message through your performance, though?
Right. One of the first activities I did, and Jeff, I was so fortunate that you actually recorded this performance. It was at NAV's Summerfest. That was 2019. And I put together my first presentation where I talked about the role of compassion to create a more positive world. And what I did was intersperse talking about the role of plant-based eating and its effect upon the environment. I alternated that with selections of music that I performed at the piano, along with visual presentations. So that was actually the first time that I did a more conscious linking of my advocacy, speaking, and music. But I love what we're doing, because I think it's more meaningful sharing it with somebody else who believes as strongly as I do in the cause. And the cello is one of the most beautiful, soulful instruments that you can find. So our program that we've been doing over these past couple months is called Strands of Compassion. And it really ties together all these themes together with beautiful music for cello and piano.
Yeah, I agree. You know, there's only like a certain extent we can go like rationally and intellectually about certain causes, such as like, you know, our eating behaviors. And then at some point there's a threshold where just rationality and intellectuality might not go any further. But with the power of music, hopefully we can maybe melt that threshold a little bit away and actually awaken the inner sensitivity of people, the compassion, empathy, and the inner desire to be good with each other, to be good to all sentient beings. Because I firmly believe that everyone has that truth inside themselves, but we are so conditioned to not have access to that. If we allow people to actually reconnect with that inner wisdom, to eventually also allow them to transform the way they show up in the world, the way they behave, they act, with each other towards all beings in the world, and also with what they have on their plate.
And you go by Vegan Virtuosi, is that right? Or Virtuosi?
Yes.
Am I saying that right?
Right, yeah. We thought we would come up with a very catchy name for ourselves that hopefully eventually will get other musicians involved as well. And there's also a project that we're both involved in. It's a documentary that's going to come out next summer, hopefully. And the name of the documentary is Taking Note. And it's featuring over 100 vegan musicians from around the world. So our performing will be featured and also interviews. And it's such a unique documentary because it's going to be unlike any other documentary. It's not like Cowspiracy or Seaspiracy that gives you all these frightening facts about how damaging animal agriculture is. This is going to be a celebration of life through music and how music inspires us to a higher level of caring. And so people who view this documentary, they're not only going to receive the vegan message, they're going to be motivated and inspired by hearing all this fantastic music. So I think it's going to be a wonderful project to be involved in.
Hopefully soon we can inspire other musicians to join us and not just play as a duo, but as maybe doing some chamber music as a quartet or piano quintet or something. And I have envisioned, and I'm sure you too, we both have envisioned the idea of having a vegan music festival at some point. As a matter of fact, long time ago, a couple of years ago, I already reserved a domain, website domain, to have actually vegan orchestras, a full vegan orchestra from musicians from around the world, meeting, making music together, and empowering the message of compassion through music and conveying it to the world.
Excellent. Sounds amazing. Is there something, a piece that you would like to share with us maybe after this conversation?
Certainly, that would be wonderful, and we look forward to sharing our music with you.
Would love to share one more idea about how we actually bring, or how we aim to bring peace and compassion into the world. Not always can we just make people change certain behaviors and everyone is going vegan. For me, it is a big inspiration to use my instrument and the beautiful music we are playing as an opportunity to actually dedicate that music to all the animals which are suffering today, which have been suffering in the past and which are currently still suffering. To truly just dedicate that to those animals and beings who don't have a voice, and make music for them and dedicate what we can do in this moment for their healing and peace.
Yeah, that's so wonderful you bring that up, because I really believe that everything we put out into the world has some effect, correct? I mean, the kind of language we use, the actions we do, what we do as performers, in some way it's affecting the world, and we have to believe that. I know you probably feel the same way I do. Sometimes I wake up in the morning and I'm distressed that the world is not more vegan, but then I remind myself of what the animals are going through. And ultimately, as an ethical vegan, that's what it's about. We're doing this for the animals, for other living beings. So that's kind of like my root motivation. That's what I work out of. So I think we totally agree and feel the same way about that.
And before we go into your performance, when you're rehearsing and preparing for a performance, how do you go about putting a piece of music together?
With Joanne, it has definitely been a wonderful experience of a lot of patience and positive encouragement, and even if one of us makes a mistake or something, there's a lot of support, and it's a very safe space to work in our project. And so, but I mean, clearly, we still have to rehearse and provide a certain, put the piece together to actually bring like justice to the piece also and allow the music to come out. We are still like have the responsibility also for that music to be on a high level so that it actually has that transformative power. Certainly it is a joy and also a responsibility to actually empower that music, especially with our message of compassion, healing, and peace.
And we've both worked with a lot of musicians over our careers as professional musicians, so there's a certain sensitivity you develop as a chamber musician where you're constantly flexible in terms of how you perform an ensemble with somebody else. So with all that experience we both have, we're able to bring that to our partnership. And part of the joy of performing chamber music is that it's almost like a dance, you know, where you're always responding to what the other person is doing, and that's part of the spontaneity of music. And as seasoned musicians, we're able to do that. So we're able to put our pieces together, I would say, pretty quickly. Would you say?
Yeah, and I think there's the shared vision of that purpose and that meaning we see in playing and in preparing these pieces in the music. I think that shared vision is so powerful in actually allowing us to streamline the process and giving us a purpose of practicing and rehearsing and performing. And one last thought I would love to share is that in my history of vegan advocacy, I've come to the experience and conclusion that sometimes like suffering and violence and hatred cannot be responded with hatred. And I remember, like, especially like when I was first vegan, like I thought, okay, the entire world has to be vegan, and I was so enthusiastic trying to make everyone vegan, and it actually didn't have the results. It actually caused more disruption in my family and with friends. It caused almost more distress than good. Now that we are a little bit more seasoned vegans, I feel like our message is designed in a hopeful, positive, joyful way to invite people, wherever they are on their journey, to invite people to join this movement of forward-looking hope, joy, and peace. Because going vegan doesn't need to be like in terms of like missing out on certain foods. It can be so inspiring. And I mean, I remember like so many vegetables and fruits I've never heard of before I went vegan, and now it's just such an abundance and beauty to explore new foods, and it's a beautiful journey. And we really want to come from that angle of hopefulness and joy and positivity to invite people to join that. And even if they don't go all the way, but if they make today one better choice than yesterday, I think this is the journey, like almost like progress but perfection. Because we think long-term wise, we don't think like, okay, today, we think long-term wise, what is the biggest impact we want to make, and coming from that positivity and hopefulness is super, super important for us.
And you know, the music really fits into that because, as you were saying before, it's so easy to feel bombarded with all these facts and information as a beginning plant-based person. And music kind of comes into someone's awareness through a different sensory pathway, right? And in some ways, I think it's almost more powerful because it's beyond language, it's beyond words, it's even beyond ideas. So I feel that our music and what we do with our music through advocating for veganism is a really powerful way to motivate people to think about their lives, to realize that they have the power to decide what's important and what beautiful gifts they have within them. Because every one of us is a unique individual, and we all have just very beautiful and special qualities that I think we all want to embrace. And you know, it's like this. Mother Teresa has this wonderful quote about, you know, even though you're just one person, you can throw that stone across the waters and create many ripples. So hopefully our musical message is doing exactly that.
music is a universal language, and we can bridge, we can bridge languages, nationalities, cultures, religions with the language of music, and providing that sacred space for contemplation. And we all know about that disconnect probably happening somewhere in the brain, where we have positive intentions, but our behaviors are not aligned to that. And maybe that sacred space of realignment of who we are, what our purpose is, can actually facilitate to reconnect also these synapses, which also reflect how we act today, what we eat today, what we say today, how we behave, how we treat each other. And yeah, certainly like so important also like what is on our plate, because this is an expression of how we treat the world, the planet, and animals.
And I think what you're doing is so perfect, because you've come to the point of using your unique skills, which helps normalize veganism in a lot of ways and approaches people in a unique, diverse way as well. So I want to congratulate you for finding your path and making the most of it.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Jeff.
Awesome. I look forward to this performance.